I'm Sophia Saliby, host of WKAR's All Things Considered. This week, we went in depth on dead malls and maybe some not so dead malls in mid-Michigan and looked into how communities are looking to transform these retail spaces. It's a story we've been working on for about a month, and our reporters, Ed Coury and Anish Topiwala, are behind it. They're here with me now in the studio. Hi, Ed.
Hi there.
And Anish.
Hi.
So we started by actually going to these malls. We didn't hear from mall management about how vacant they were, how many stores were open and closed. So Anish, you actually visited each mall and counted how many stores were open or not open.
Yeah, I walked through all 4 malls in both Jackson City and Lansing area.
And what was that experience like? Because I know you saw like stores that were actually like in the process of closing when you were there.
Yeah, absolutely. There were malls, especially in the Lansing Mall. There were over 10 stores that were just closed. The gates were down, the lights were off, but they still had the signs up. It looked to be still occupied, but they weren't open when they were supposed to be. It was pretty much a trend through all 4 malls, honestly.
I want to get into the numbers because you actually counted how many stores were open and how many stores were closed. So in the capital region, you found a third of the stores in the Lansing Mall in Delta Township were unoccupied. You know, what were you seeing there? Who was around? Were people around?
There were people around. Honestly, there was kind of half and half with people carrying bags and people not carrying bags. Those are typically the mall walkers. I actually got stopped by a mall walker when I was counting in Lansing Mall. They were asking me, hey, are you lost? You need to find a store. And I was like, no, I'm just counting the stores. And it was kind of that trend with both malls in the capital region. A lot of people just kind of walking around, not really shopping, honestly.
And then, Ed, you were also looking into the Meridian Mall to the east. How did the numbers compare there when it came to vacancy rate?
Yeah, I talked with the supervisor of Meridian Township, and he says the mall is very important. In fact, at the beginning of the year, they put together, I guess, their New Year's wish list. What do we need to do in Meridian Township to make things better? And under the business section, they had 4 or 5 goals, and one of them was to improve the Meridian Mall because they know there's potential, but just like malls all over the country, there's a lot of vacancies, and they need to do something.
And we also went to Jackson. The Westwood Mall had a 51% vacancy rate. But Jackson Crossing was actually different. What did you find, Anish?
Yeah, so Westwood was kind of shocking. There were entire kind of hallways, so you'd see 1 or 2 stores open in a little walkway in a hallway, and the rest were just gates off, lights off, not even the signs up this time. And you would see a lot of the people kind of flocking to these what are called anchor stores. So you'd see in a corner of the mall, a giant store, giant property space, like a Walmart or a JCPenney or a Macy's. In Westwood, it was the Walmart and the JCPenney that most people were going to, not even kind of walking through the indoor mall space, honestly, just kind of going to the Walmart, going to the JCPenney and leaving. And with Jackson Crossing, it was, I believe, a 13% occupancy or vacancy rate. And although that number does sound better, it was kind of funny. I was walking through that mall that day. There were kind of kids just skating down when they're in the shopping cart, just kind of barreling down these hallways. And there wasn't really security kind of stopping them. So that kind of shows that even though it is a 13% vacancy rate, there still is a little bit of I guess there's less people going to these malls still, less security, that kind of thing.
What did community members credit as to why Jackson Crossing maybe isn't so bad as Meridian or Lansing or Jackson Crossing?
Well, when I spoke with the general manager of Jackson Crossing, she actually attributed it to 2 things. It was marketing and management. She all kind of talked about how when you're managing a mall, you have to make sure that when a store leaves, you have a store coming in. That was a very important thing she addressed to me, just making sure that stores are addressed and you're addressing when there's a vacancy. And I feel that's not really a trend that happens with all malls because not all mall management are very, attentive to these vacancies. And with marketing, it was a lot of kind of community engagement, working with nonprofits, having events in the mall, getting people to the mall, not just to shop. That's kind of the biggest thing I noticed.
Ed, you looked into the future of malls. Do stores want to come into these retail spaces?
The malls are still attracting some stores, but they're still losing stores. So the trend seems to be turning the malls, not only here, but across the country, from, huge buildings with nothing but retail in them into multi-use facilities. There were places where there's a lot of things going on, so people will go there because clearly people have other places to buy things, online especially.
I talked to somebody with the Michigan chapter of the American Planning Association, and she said, these places offer a lot of opportunity. There's already a lot of infrastructure, and you can take a bigger space, like a big vacant big box store or a mall, and have front-facing things, restaurants, shops, housing even, and then also maybe create a warehouse. But the warehouse or like the office park in the back should stay in the back because otherwise it'll just be a big block building in the horizon that, was kind of still a little bit sad. Are there any new things that communities are trying to revive these malls? Anything interesting you found for both of you?
I know that this whole term, mixed use property, it's kind of vague, but mixed use it is in many communities, and they're thinking about this at places like Meridian Mall, places where people not only can shop, they still want retail, but entertainment is something people want. Experiences. Gen Z, according to the research, loves to go out and do things. So that's why, places that promote axe throwing, growing, and also residential. People are interested in living near these mixed-use facilities where the action will be. So a lot of people have approached, according to the Meridian Township supervisor, developers have approached him about projects like that. So that it's exciting for them.
Anish, anything else?
Yeah, I feel like a lot of these unorthodox stores kind of attract people into the mall. Stores that like give that tactile sensation. You're trying on clothes. You can like kind of go to like a trading card shop, kind of witness MMA fights. That was one thing I had talked to someone about in Lansing Mall. They mentioned that like things draw people to the mall, things that you don't really see otherwhere else online. Like one woman I spoke with actually runs it's kind of a strange like nonprofit situation where it's like she called it a free boutique, which kind of just means that people who don't have the means to like buy clothes, body wash, any kind of amenities can just come into the mall. They can actually help them try on clothes, help them like find what they need, and also just walk out with that stuff for free essentially. And it's those kind of unorthodox approaches that kind of bring people in a way that you wouldn't expect at a normal like shopping situation, I feel like.
Yeah, and this isn't something that I've heard that's been planned for our area yet, but Netflix is getting into some of the anchor stores, the old Pennies and the old Sears that are now closed in some of these malls. And I'm not exactly sure what Netflix is going to do, but it's going to promote their shows in a way that people who come and visit can get involved. So that's interesting. Locally, Horrocks has moved its grocery store that was in downtown Battle Creek to the Lakeview Square Mall, and it's taking up anchor store space there. So that's very unusual, but it's cool at the same time.
I think about Schuler Books and Meridian Mall. They had a space there, and then they moved into the old Bed Bath & Beyond. And I walk in there, and I'm like, how is this a Bed Bath & Beyond? Like, I can kind of see the bones of it, but I'm like, where is that store within this store? So it is interesting to kind of see these repurposed spaces. And I feel like when I moved to Michigan, that was, I would see like old Pizza Huts that were brought back as like other restaurants or other retail spaces. So it feels very Michigan to me. I'm not a local Michigander like you guys are, but I feel like we are very much a culture of revitalizing these spaces or bringing them back in some way. So is there an environmental impact to having these big empty buildings, or maybe is there an environmental impact to redeveloping these buildings?
Yeah, I spoke with someone from Smith Group, which is based in Detroit, which is really big into repurposing buildings like malls and redoing older downtowns that needed an update. And he said one big thing that's important from an environmental point of view when you talk about reimagining the mall is you're not burning, you're not adding carbon emissions. You're utilizing what's already been there. So all the energy that's already been used to build that big building, that stays, but you're not wasting more energy with new construction. He also said something that was interesting to me is some of these malls are so vacant, their parking lots are empty. These big, sometimes black surfaces that heat up during the day and actually warm the atmosphere, which isn't good for the environment. So the whole idea of refurbishing a mall as opposed to just plowing it over and starting again is supposedly good for the environment.
One thing I wanted to talk about is the age spread here. Ed, you're a baby boomer. I'm kind of in the millennial Gen Z cusp. And then Anish, as an intern, you are quite young. You are Gen Z. Don't say what year you were born. I don't want to hear it. So we have different experiences going to malls. So I wanted you guys to share, like, what was the mall to you growing up? Ed, we'll start with you.
Yeah, well, for me, the mall was definitely my favorite place. And if I had a choice of where mom and dad could take me, it would have to be the mall. I mean, as a tyke, they actually had kind of mini amusement parks on the ground floor where you put a quarter in the horse, you could ride the horse. They had little boats in a tub and they would go around. That's where you look for your Christmas presents. You went to pick them up. As I got older, that was the place where you would go and take your friends, you'd meet friends, meet new people, hang out at the mall. And as an adult, a young adult, that's where you'd get your car fixed. The Sears was the place where you could get the cars and the batteries or rather tires and batteries. And it was just a place where we spent a lot of time.
Anish, does that resonate with you?
I definitely experienced the tail end of like the mall culture. Like as a kid, sometimes I'd go with my mom and my dad. Like my aunt and uncle owned like a little candy store in their mall in North Carolina. That's what I'd visit them typically for. I'd love going to that candy store. But like as time went on, as I got older, I really would not be going to malls, honestly. It wasn't really a draw for me. The malls were kind of like shutting down. Like there weren't really stores in there that drew teenagers because we don't have a lot of money to shop at that period of time. I really cannot relate too much to that, honestly. The main thing was the theaters. Like I would go to the theaters in the mall, but that was quite honestly about it.
Which was really interesting working on this story because I didn't think it was so quick because Anish and I are not too far in age, but I relate much more, Ed, to you. Like that's where we'd get dropped off on the weekends. We'd screw around. Like I have like whole Facebook albums that are probably hidden at this point of just like random pictures we were taking on our digital cameras, like trying on clothes that we were not going to buy, bothering people, eating candy. So it was interesting to learn like, oh, this happened quickly, like how vacant these spaces came and how quickly the culture changed.
And honestly, like I didn't even register how quickly it happened. Like at one point in time, I just remembered like, wow, the Lakeside Mall, the mall I grew up going to, it does not look good. And I didn't really register the fact that it wasn't looking good until I just went in one day and I was like, wow, this is not what I remember it being as a kid.
And a mall that closed but is now getting fully redeveloped. So,
yeah.
It is happening. I think this is a great place to end the conversation. I'm really excited for our audience to read this story, listen to the story, see what you guys have been reporting. So you can find it online at WKAR.org. We have pictures Anish took at all of these malls, how vacant they were, how filled they were, and you can listen to the story there too. So, thank you for reporting this story and thank you for joining me, Ed.
My pleasure.
And Anish.
Thanks for having me.